Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my very special guests are three Facebook friends, Stacy, Corey, and Jason, who are joining me to talk about their awakening to the Matrix. I am planning on doing these types of shows on a periodic basis, so those who are like-minded in trying to make the world a better place have a voice. Our discussion was wide-ranging and a lot of fun, and so without further ado, here's Corey, Jason, and Stacy. Well, folks, we're going to have a different kind of show this evening. Instead of having some brand-named activists on the show, I thought it was important to have some of my friends to come on the show, friends of mine that are on Facebook who are very much engaged and understand what's going on in the world, and to basically, get the conversation going and the words from the average person. There's a lot more people out there that are awake than I think that a lot of people believe. And so tonight I have friends from Facebook, Stacy, Corey, and Jason. And we're going to take about 2 hours. And we're going to walk through a couple of questions, and we're going to share our experiences and our ideas and our thoughts, and to talk about what's going on in the world and hopefully maybe some solutions on how we can make the world a better place. So the first question, guys and gals, is, and we're going to pose it to Stacy first because it's ladies first. What was the event that led to your awakening? What was that moment in time, Stacy, when you said, you know what, something's not quite right?
Well, I've felt that way pretty much my whole life, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening and everything have felt the same way, that it's just something that always nags at you. And a few years ago, I started a program with a lady, and it was to explore the divine feminine, the goddess. And through that program was where I really started to see the disconnect between the different, well, this is our religion, but this happened 5,000 years ago. So there's just, all of these synchronicities started happening. I actually started hearing voices, if you will, because I was hearing spirit or my guides or ancestors, or, there's lots of names that people like to put to them. And I really, for a minute there, I almost stopped the program because I told Donna, I was like, I think I'm losing my mind. And she's like, you're not losing your mind. You're not crazy. And I was like, I see things, and so we had a talk, and I've worked with her through that. And so that program, that first year, it had to have been the first 6 months. It was like Pandora's box. I felt out of control, and it was a little scary, but now it levels off, and I just start taking little pieces at a time, something that interests me that I don't know anything about, that I want to know something about. And so then I'll just do some extra research on that. So I take it a little bit at a time.
We all have that inner voice, and when we hear that inner voice, it's very easy to chalk it up as just you're imagining this and so on. But one of the biggest problems that I see, and I've mentioned this on a few shows, is our disconnect to spirit. And because we are disconnected from spirit, this is why we have, in my view, many of the problems that we have in the world. Because many people do not have a divine connection. So if you don't have a divine connection, then what's happening is you're going to fall back most of the time on service to self versus service to creation or serving others. So I completely get it, Stacy. I had a very similar experience going back to 2006, where it was sounds like for you was kind of a spiritual type of awakening. So let's move to Jason. Jason, what was that moment in time when you said, you know what, this place is not what I was taught?
Well, Mike, I grew up in a Southern Baptist home on that path for a while, and it kind of happened in stages. But the first main one was I was about 20. I wasn't real active in the church. I'd moved away from home, and I found out that my pastor had actually killed himself. And that was like such a shock to me. This is the man that's supposed to be so close to God. Like, how could he do that? So that was kind of my first blip of something's not right. And then, years later, 9/11 happened, and I was with everybody else at first. I thought the government's right. We were doing the right thing. And then just slowly through research, things just didn't seem right. And, just like you said before about peeling the onion, peeling the layers away. And I just started researching and, it's pretty overwhelming. It's depressing at first, but we got to get through that stuff to find the truth,
It can be very overwhelming. And that's one of the things I think we're going to touch on in this conversation later on, Jason, is how do we go about keeping our sanity? How do we stay grounded in this very, very strange world? Because it is very strange. 9/11 was my turnkey moment as well. I was the same as everybody else. When it first happened, it was those radical Islamist terrorists and airplanes and all that stuff and box cutters. And then what happened was, I don't know, it was kind of like I was able to kind of weed through it. I took a step back, and as I started looking into various documentaries, that's what got me started. I started looking at 9/11 documentaries, and they started making a lot of sense, a whole lot more sense than what the government was telling us,
Right. Than the narrative. The first one that really got me was those planes were flying for like an hour, and we've got the best military in the world, and, it takes 5 minutes to scramble fighter jets anywhere pretty much. And, these planes were flying around just like, like Sunday flying or whatever.
Yeah.
How did that happen? It just makes no sense.
Yeah, the whole Pentagon deal, how that plane even got even remotely close to the Pentagon is just, that story just is ridiculous.
It's so full of fallacy.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a fairy tale. And interestingly enough, I think there's a lot of people now that I saw some kind of poll where they said, at least in New York, over 50% of the people polled in New York do not believe the official government story on 9/11.
Not surprising.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's 50% still do, but at one point, that number who believed the government story was much higher than 50%. And, so today it's much lower. So which means people are waking up and people are starting to understand that the government is perhaps not your best friend. So, Corey, you're up next. What was your turnkey moment when you figured out that the world's much different than you thought?
I guess, growing up, I always used to, in my sister would always talk about the American Indian, and we always used, like when I started to really look at that kind of history, that was really the first Holocaust, anywhere, and it's not talked about. Hitler is the evil guy who did the Holocaust, supposedly, killing 6 million Jews. And when you turn back and you kind of look at the history, 80 years before him, we had the U.S. government. They were slaughtering Indians all over the land, and it just kind of, I don't know. I used to just think that's pretty bad, And then I guess growing up, when 9/11 came around, that was a big thing for, like what you guys were talking about. That hits nail on the head right there. Because I used to, I bought the story for 2 years. I bought the story for, it was probably 2 or 3 years. And then actually when those documentaries started kind of coming out, it didn't surprise me, just after all of it happened. I think what made me more upset was just the people who weren't waking up to it. And that's what bothered me the most. When
you found out and you figured it out, Corey, did it make you angry?
Yeah, it did. I guess when you think about just the people who weren't looking at it, it's like, look at this. We're putting up with this. This is not the story. And then, after, when they went and did, or found Gaddafi, I don't know, if you really looked at the story like that and seen what really happened, I think a lot of Americans would be shocked.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Native American Indians and the slaughter of the Indians, and also tens of millions of people died under Stalin.
Yes.
Tens of millions of people, Christians under Stalin, and nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever talks about that. So we probably won't get into that in this show, but I completely understand what you're saying. So when we focus on one group, and that particular group is constantly, the drum is constantly pounded on that, you have to take a step back and you have to start to wonder, is there an agenda? Why is this being pushed? And everything else that took place where people were slaughtered is completely ignored in history. Why is that? Let me just ask this question now. I know I have my challenges with my immediate family and some of my friends, especially my family. I am pretty much the black sheep. So it's very, very difficult. And I have to say myself personally, I've gotten a lot better about measuring my audience. Years ago, I was more boom.
Guns blazing.
Yeah. And the reason why I did that was because I was assuming that the people around me, that they would be interested. So in other words, if I brought something up about 9/11, I would think that they would be interested in wanting to hear what it is that I found out, or to share a documentary or whatever it may be. And long story short is it didn't work out. Everybody's at a different rate and pace. And, some of us are way ahead. There are those that are in between. And then, of course, there are those people that will probably never wake up. So I guess the question, and Stacey, I'll ask you again, how do you handle friends and family? How do you make that work? Does it work?
No, it doesn't. No, most of my kids, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are pretty awake and will listen to mom, but the oldest, that's not happening. She's 15. She's not going for it. If I ever try to even bring up 9/11, because my dad lives in New York right now, doesn't want to talk about it. I think he completely buys the story, or at least he just doesn't want to think about it. I think that's more of what it is. But as far as any of the other conspiracies out there that I would just like to, the Illuminati or Cabal or any of those, there's not very many people I could talk to. I probably have 2.
Okay. And
the rest of it, I just have to do on my own, just think about it on my own. And I really don't, I was interested to be on the call because I wanted to see what other people did as well. I don't know really how to bring the subjects up because like you said, they're not, a lot of people are it is like fighting words.
Yeah. They get very upset. Sometimes they become very belligerent.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. That's been my experience on many occasions. Jason, how about yourself? How do you deal with friends and family who are not on board?
I have a couple of friends that I can speak to openly about it. For the most part, I try to measure a person in a conversation, and you can drop little hints and see if they're aware of things. It really depends on I shouldn't say the conspiracy, but the topic, because some things are bigger than others. 9/11 is a good one because we do have evidence now. Like you mentioned earlier, the Pentagon, there was no plane that hit that sucker. It was completely round, like a missile hit it. So with certain things like that, you can say. Other things, flat Earth, for example, I don't speak to many people about it because they're so, and I don't blame them. They've just been so indoctrinated. They become so angry about it. It's ridiculous. How can you believe that something like that? And it's really difficult. So I try to measure it, and the vaccine thing, it goes person to person. And my family, I've gotten into big fights about that. Like with my dad, like I said, he's a Southern Baptist. So when Israel went in and the Gaza Strip a couple of years ago and was just blowing people up, I said, how can you support this? But he was a Sean Hannity, the stupid Fox News. Well, they're protecting themselves. No, they're not. Look at this information. But, when you've been indoctrinated 70 years of your life that these people are good, and, it's hard to turn somebody's mind. They've been browbeaten their whole life into it. And then, you're turning their whole worldview on its head. So I understand it is hard. So I just measure it person to person.
It's very difficult to get folks to understand the whole Zionist agenda. Most people, when you talk to them about Zionism, they don't even know what it is, unfortunately. And like you said, Jason, there has just been so much indoctrination and so much propaganda that's been put forth. Like I have the same conversations with folks about what's going on in Gaza and Palestine with the Israelis dropping white phosphorus bombs. It's just unbelievable what's going on there. And you can't get people to take a step back and pause just even 1 minute to listen to, to take a look at it and say, okay, let's let's rethink this thing. Maybe there is something here that we need to look at, and maybe they're not the good guys.
Or even just taking an objective view at it, but they refuse to do that. It's God's promise. God promised that to the Jews, and it's disheartening to say the least.
Yeah, yeah. Corey, how about yourself? How do you deal with friends and family?
Well, it was hard. I guess I never really brought anything up. Like 9/11, I always kind of kept to myself. I never really talked about it with too many people. I just figured they probably knew the real story if they were just to look. So what happened with me, it was last year, April of 2016. I was a big fan of Rob Skiba, still am. I used to listen to his stuff all the time. And there was something about flat Earth came up. And I didn't know what it meant. I never looked at it. I never clicked on any of the videos. I just kind of thought, One day I did. I clicked on it. And, I couldn't believe that they were actually talking about the world being flat. I was like, what? I couldn't. I was lost, But I kept researching on it. I did. I looked at it some more, and, it was just, I couldn't believe it, And then you're trying to tell somebody. After I knew more about it, I was able to talk. There's a couple of people around here that are on board with it, but, like my parents, I've tried to mention it to them, and I went about it the wrong way. You see, you just can't go out and just tell them all these proofs about the flat Earth. And that's what I did, and so I did it wrong.
Corey, that's the kind of the problem, isn't it? Is the fact that you have to have a way of going about it. Right, when you think about it,
right,
with your family. So in other words, you have to be strategic, and you have to measure the way you're going to have a conversation with them. And you would think that with your family that you shouldn't have to do that.
Exactly. Like my wife, she doesn't, she's not into any conspiracies or anything like that, but she's open-minded. She will listen to it. And after I started building these flat Earth models, these clocks, she was able to see the model. Because once you show somebody the model, it would make sense to them. But if you're trying to explain it, you can never do it. They're not going to go check out a video. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to go check out a video. So that's why I started building these, just so that they can, see the model.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so it sounds like we all have a very similar problem as far as trying to get these issues addressed, or to even talk about them and try to get people to awaken. So then this segues into the next question, which is, what do you personally do to step away from the craziness of the world? How do you spend time with your family, hobbies? What do you do to make sure you stay grounded and you keep your sanity?
I actually have a round, and it's funny because before I was awake, I had designed a patio for my backyard, and it was funny that it turned out to be circle. And I was, my dad was like, why'd you pick that design? That's a weird design. And I was like, I don't know why I picked it, but now I know why I picked it. But, so I go out there and, I have a lot of moon ceremonies, and which, I started doing a whole bunch of the flat Earth videos. And then I'm thinking to myself, why am I even drawing down any energy from this moon or this sun? Right. They could be stories in and of themselves. So, and going back with one of my kids, she's in junior high, and I told her, she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm watching a video about flat Earth. And she goes, oh my God, you don't believe that, do you? And she's only 12, because it's that severe from the time, now they're getting them from the time they're babies with these space images. And I said, I don't know, because if you listen to some of them, you really need to think about it.
Yep.
I try to tell my kids, going back to our previous question, just if you're interested, just learn about it. Do your own research about it. Make your own decision. And so I'm trying to keep that open-mindedness with them. And I do, like I said, I do a lot of getting back to the earth and a lot of spiritualism for me. And I just do a lot of work with plants and the goddess.
That's great. That's great. That's a great way to keep grounded and to stay balanced. Jason, how about yourself? What do you do to make sure that you don't lose your mind?
Well, I've got 3 young kids, 10, 6, and 6. So they take a lot of my free time. I really don't have a lot of free time these days. So I watch videos of, interesting subjects, interesting to me at least. To be honest, I don't watch TV anymore. I've just gotten away from it. I don't really watch a lot of movies. I feel like I wasted a lot of time with that when I was younger, and now I want to fill my head with more knowledge and watching documentaries and things that are as depressing as the hidden world can be sometimes. I just feel like knowledge is power, and I just want to equip myself with as much as possible.
Yeah, it's I do the same thing. I don't watch regular TV. I got rid of it a long time ago, and I will spend my evenings hunting down videos or documentaries. It doesn't even have to be, conspiracy stuff. It just has to be interesting stuff in which I feel like I'm learning something.
Right. I just don't want to waste my time anymore. I've wasted a lot of time watching things that didn't really enrich my life or, the experience. So,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Corey, so you're building these flat earth tables, and these tables are absolutely brilliant. In fact, I don't know if you guys know, but Corey built me one. It's going to be here on Wednesday, Corey.
Yes.
Yeah. They sent me FedEx sent me an email.
Do you have pictures of it?
He has pictures.
I got, there is, Mark Sargent did some videos on it. He, I think I had like 2 that he put on there, and one of them's, Mike's and one of them's Mark's. And that's what I'm doing now is I'm building their flat earth coffee tables, and there's a clock inside also. And
looks fantastic. I saw the pictures.
The detail is unbelievable.
Did you? Yeah. What's nice about that, though, is, and that's actually what helps me through this all, is building these, because every time I'm, if someone comes over and sees what I'm doing, that's how I bring up the flat earth conversation, because it's easy to kind of explain when you see it, because, wherever the hour hand is, that's where it's high noon in that country. It could be 10 o'clock here, and then you see where the hour hand is. It's high noon in Australia or whatever. So they're easy to explain to somebody. And that's the thing with my dad. I'm trying to bring this stuff up to my family. There's one thing that me and my dad have in common, and that's, carpentry and love. I mean, I grew up in a good household. I think maybe I'm probably the little bit of the black sheep just because of the things that I research and believe in. And when Flat Earth came along, I was embarrassed to even say anything. I didn't even want to, tell anyone about it. And so that's what I started to do. I started building Flat Earth coffee tables, make it a clock, and I thought, well, if someone sees it, they'll be able to understand it. And so I built like 5 of them so far, and they're not. I was going to build Mike. Well, Mike, remember when I contacted you? It was all around your birthday, the first part of January, I think.
Yeah.
And I was going to build you one because when I came across this Flat Earth, it was Dave Weiss and your show, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh my God, it was brilliant. So I that's when I started to really look at the evidence for Flat Earth. And I was surprised. I remember driving down I was coming up from Billings, and it hit me right there driving. It was like we are on a flat earth and a firmament above us. I mean, it was like I knew it. Like I knew that's where we were at. It was, I don't know, I guess you could say I didn't really want to, and I was embarrassed to tell anybody about it. I didn't even want to say, hey, have you ever looked into flat earth, because I know what I would have said if someone would have did that to me a couple of months prior to that.
Well, Corey, we were all indoctrinated, all of us. I felt the same way. Just so you know, when I first got into it, I first started looking into it, I found it very intriguing and very interesting, and there's a lot of proof points and stuff like that I can relate to, but I still wouldn't step out and I wouldn't talk about it.
Right.
I kept it to myself. But secretly, I was watching all this stuff, and I was very intrigued by it.
I mean, like when you would start hearing stuff like, Jaronism, Eric Dubé, all those guys who've actually researched this hard and the proofs they come up with, you look like gravity. Once you start really thinking about gravity, it's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. It's magic. It's like a magic trick. There's no proof of gravity. You can't recreate it. It's still on the chalkboard. but we adopted it as truth, and it is still a theory. And most people don't know that,
right.
you know?
Right.
I mean, when you're looking at trillions of gallons of water on a spinning globe, and then you see like a piece of cotton floating around that just came off a cottonwood tree, you know, it's like, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense when you start looking at all those little things like that, you know? Like,
water was a big one for me.
What one was?
Water. How does water stick to a spinning ball 1,000 miles an hour? And how is it flat? Where's the curve? I mean, where's the curve?
Right. And then, you know, like that, when you're standing on the ocean or standing on the beach, you know, looking out at the ocean at the sunset, you know, that reflection of that sun, it just goes right to your feet. Right. And on a ball, that could never happen. It can't. I mean, you can even kind of do that experiment with yourself. If you took, like a basketball and wrapped it with tinfoil and shine a light on it, it's not going to travel up over. It won't. It'll stop. You know, it's kind of the same way. So yeah, I mean, water always finds its level. It's the Nile. It runs uphill. It's finding its level, and you can't get away from that. You cannot argue that.
Well, there are people who will argue it.
Yeah, there are. No, you're right. There are. And
I know what you're saying, but you have all the people out there that they just don't want to look at it for whatever reason. Some of them, they're paid to be instigators in order to keep the lie in place. Others are people that are they're indoctrinated. They are indoctrinated and they just don't want to believe. Yeah. I had somebody tell me one time, I was talking about they said, well, I see, this is going back several months ago, and they said, you post a lot of flat earth videos on your Facebook page. And I said, well, I said, I've been looking at it for a long time now, and, I've come to the conclusion that we don't live on a big ball. And so they said, well, I don't really want to believe that. I don't want to believe. So it got down to they were enamored with the whole, it was like a romance with the solar system and planets and moons and nebula and all of that stuff and black holes and so on. And it's amazing to me because this person's admitting that they're not even coming at it from an intellectual perspective. They're coming at it from an emotional perspective. I want to believe this because I'm in love with that model.
The fantasy.
The beauty of the universe.
Right.
Yeah, that's what used to get me too when people would say that. Well, what difference does it make? And I couldn't believe them saying that. It's like, it just makes all the difference in the world, something like that. That is the biggest one of all time, and I just can't believe. And I really think that's just a cop-out when they say that, because if it was on Fox News tomorrow and they said the Earth was flat, it would be a big deal then.
I think that if you put it on Fox News, I said this once on a show. I said, if tomorrow they announced on all of the major media outlets that the Apollo missions were a hoax, there would still be people that would refuse to believe it was a hoax. They would still believe that man landed on the moon, and the person telling them is a shill. Is a liar, is a deceiver, right? So that's the thing with people, and that's why it gets to be very difficult to be able to move the ball forward and to get the awakening to move at a rate and pace in which you feel like we are actually making change or we're turning the corner. So let me just go to that question. In fact, we had a question that had to do with that, and I'll go back to Stacy on this. Stacy, the awakening, is it happening exponentially in your mind, or is it a slow go?
I think it's happening exponentially, because I've actually had either that or I'm manifesting more and more people in my life who are somewhat awake. I mean, for instance, where I work, there was a guy there, and we just hired him, young kid, never in my wildest dreams would I thought that he would be on the whole Hollywood Awaken program. And I was like, somebody I can talk to that actually doesn't believe all of this hype and this nonsense and everything. And so, I've little by little, I have started to meet people who at some level have started to awaken, and I am thrilled for it. I hope that that's the case with with the rest of you guys on here, but I think it is exponentially. I don't know. I'm anxious to hear what you guys say.
Jason, what do you think?
Well, I see a few here and there. I'll be surprised sometimes when I mention something and the person is open to it. But when you just look out at the masses, I don't feel as confident, unfortunately. I wish I did, but it's not moving as fast as I would hope for in my own experience.
Yeah, I actually had this discussion with Oli Damagod on a recent show. He had the same opinion that you did, Stacy, that it's exponential, and I was more on Jason's end where I said people are awakening, there's no question about that, but I question the rate and pace. Is it going to be quick enough and fast enough to actually mean something? In other words, to actually transform the world from this matrix that we're in to something that's much better. And so Oli had said to me, how do you gauge that? And I said, how do I gauge it? I step outside of my house and I go to Walmart, you know?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be funny. I shop at Walmart occasionally, but when you go there and you take a look at how people are functioning and you take a look at the food that they're buying, I mean, you know that these people are not on board. I mean, these people are not connected in. They're not awakened. They're stuck in the matrix, you know? But on the other hand, because when you are awakened to this stuff, your network and your circle of friends does grow. And that goes to your point, Stacy, where more and more people, you're manifesting more and more people in your life that are like-minded, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I've seen that happen to me also. How about you, Jason? Have you seen more and more people come into your life, or is it still just Jason versus the world?
Well, in terms of, Facebook friends, yes, I feel like that's my spot where I can kind of put it out there, what I'm seeing, like the GMO thing. It shocks me that people still don't even know GMOs, even people that are older and, well-to-do people. I've had conversations where they were like, what's a GMO?
Yeah. And
I'm floored by it. And, I do a lot more research maybe than some because one of our children's on the spectrum, the autism spectrum. So, we've been looking into that, the food supply, what's been added to the food, the GMOs, the fluoride, the glyphosate from Monsanto, all that. The circle on Facebook's grown, but unfortunately the outside, I just don't see it as much.
Okay. Well, that's a fair assessment. So, Corey, how about you? What are you seeing?
Well, I live in a town that's 2,500 people. So it's I have a lot of friends here and everything, but there's two people in this town that are on board with flat earth. And one of them's a good friend of mine, and the other one, it surprised me. I go to this gas station every day. I've been going there every day for years. And this lady who works in there, and I brought up flat earth to her one day, and she was like, she was on board with it. And she was the same way I was. She just didn't know who to, she was surprised that I was on flat earth. But other than that, I guess I've been just, joining the groups on Facebook and just kind of, doing things like that, building these coffee tables. It's just,
yeah, that's
kind of what keeps me going with it, because it will drive you crazy. It did me if you don't do something with all that energy you just learned,
Yeah, you have to do something. That's why I'd mentioned to you, Corey, you build the coffee tables and, and I repair and build guitars, and that's what keeps me kind of centered, because I'm doing all this research, I'm doing these shows, I'm doing the blog, and if you do too much of this stuff, if you've got your head buried in it too many days for too long, it's going to start to affect you mentally. It could start to affect you physically. And I've had people in the truth community and the alternative research community say to me that, Mike, this is just too much. It's too dark. It's too evil. It's too this. It's too that. And, they were basically, they've got themselves plowed under. And I said, look, you have to pick yourself up and you have to take a break and you have to go live your life. Spend time with your friends and your family. Go out to eat. Go to a ball game. Go for a walk in the park. Whatever your hobby is, spend more time doing your hobby. I think a lot of times people who do this work or people who focus on the stuff that's going on in the world, the conspiracies and the alternative research, they sometimes forget that they have to take care of themselves.
When you get into the deep, dark stuff like you were talking about, pedophilia, and, it makes you sick. So you have to find something to make you happy.
Right.
Exercise, or like you said, finding those hobbies for sure.
Yeah. So let me ask this question now. We'll go to the next question. And Stacy, we'll start with you again. What is the one issue, and let's just pick one issue, that you believe is the most important to understand and address at this time? So what do you think that if you had your way of being able to, let's just say you were able to have a pulpit and somebody said, Stacy, you can go out there and it's your show. What would you drive home to people? What would be the issue that you would say to them, look, wake up, focus, we've got to do something about this? What would that be?
I would probably want to focus on something that I think that people could actually understand and grasp easier. And I would want to start with 9/11 and the towers turning to dust. I remember I was pregnant with my oldest, my very first child. And I was thinking, what kind of world are we bringing this baby into? And I remember looking at it, and I remember telling my mom over and over again, I was like, where are the people? Where are the deaths? Where are the, and I kept saying, where is this stuff? I understand it all fell, but how did it just pulverize into dust? And nobody could give me an answer. And I remember I just kept going on and on. I'm like, they're not finding bodies, and it just did not sit well with me. So my pulpit would be to go over that engineering of the buildings and the conspiracy behind wars, the history of war in our world and why we have them. And it's all about money. It is all about money. It is all about money. When you get right down to it, it's all about power. Money and power. And I honestly don't think, and this is another issue, but I honestly don't think that George Bush at the time, I don't think he really knew that they were going to do that. I think that there's so many levels above the president's head. I think he was shocked when they told him in that press, when they had that camera on him. I don't think he's that good of an actor. I could be wrong. I just say right now, nothing will surprise me anymore. Nothing, but that would be my pulpit, is to go from there and to teach, to relearn our history about war. Because it's just like everything with religion. There's so much of it that has been stolen from us. The history of the goddess or the divine feminine, for instance, has just been ripped away from humanity. Everything about her, is mysterious now, because we'll never know until we get to look at some of these books, or if they had been destroyed, because whoever won the war wrote the history. And so that's where I'd love to start.
And I will say that when Bush was in that classroom, I think it was Scooter Libby that whispered in his ear. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember. He almost looked to me like he went into a trance state.
Yeah.
It was almost like what was said to him was a trigger word and put him into a trance state. And they were reading My Pet Goat, So there was some kind of crazy little ritual going on there, I think. Jason, what would be your issue that you would like to get out and get people to wake up to?
9/11 is a good one, but it could be even more global. I mean, just the control grid or the control matrix. I don't know if you want to call it Freemasonry or Jesuits. I don't, we depending on which person you listen to, they put a different name on it.
Well, the secret societies.
Secret society. Yep. You could call it that. Just the amount of blackmail, all these sick people, with like I said before, the pedophilia, and then, getting these people in their hip pocket, you got tape on somebody doing, these murders or whatever, they're always going to be bought off. They can never tell the truth because they'll be destroyed. And, if we could just root out some of that would be a great start.
One of the things that I have found to be very effective, you're talking about money and stuff like that. I've turned a couple of people's heads by giving them this little analogy. If you own a house and you pay your mortgage off, do you really own your house because you're paying property taxes?
Heck no. They would take your house in a heartbeat.
They'll take your house, right. So if you've paid your mortgage off and you're not paying a mortgage, you still have to pay property taxes. And if you don't pay those property taxes, they will not only take the property, they will take the house along with it. So I've actually gotten a couple of people, it's made them kind of like pause and think about it. I said, now, you do not own your property, you rent it. You are renting your property. It's in perpetuity, right? And you're never going to not have personal property tax. They're always going to tax you. And so that's gotten a couple of people that I've spoken to kind of like raise an eyebrow and say, you know, you're right. I'm always going to be paying that property tax, even if when I pay my house off. So what, Mike, what is up with that? I'm telling them, well, it's the Matrix, my friend. You know, you need to do a little more homework.
Well, just like in Florida, they won't allow you to live off the grid. That you can't, even if you can fully sustain yourself, you're not allowed to live off the grid. They'll condemn your house.
Yeah, they arrested that one lady, right? She wanted nothing to do with being on the grid, and they went after her. And she was an older lady. Yep, you're exactly right. Corey, how about yourself? What is the one issue that if you can shout from the mountaintop to get people to pay attention to, what would it be?
Well, I guess with 9/11, you know, after looking at all those documentaries and everything, but after reading Judy Wood's book, that's what did it for me. And I suggest everyone read Where Did the Towers Go by Judy Wood. Very good book. Me and my sister both read it, actually. And that one, if you want to know something about 9/11 and some technology that that we have, that's unbelievable.
That's a tough book to read, so hats off to you. How many pages is that?
Oh, gosh.
It's huge, right?
250, something like that. I'm not even sure.
I thought it was more than 250, but yeah.
That's big. It took me about 2 weeks to read it, and I had to read a lot of it over and over again. Like the ending, when you read the ending of it, it's, you know, like them taking their shirts off. They were like, you know, when they were at the window, they were like in a they were boiling, they were heating up, you know, they were taking their clothes off, you know. And
jet fuel doesn't do that?
What's that?
I'm sorry, I was just kidding. I said jet fuel doesn't do that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no doubt. Just watch it collapse. I mean, it just looks, it's ridiculous. I just would like to see everybody research it. I really would.
Yeah, I think the flat earth is one of those things that it should make people take a step back and say, because like you said before, Corey, where people would say, well, what difference does it make? Well, first of all, you have to think to yourself, well, why would they lie to you to such an extent? I mean, doesn't that bother you? Doesn't it bother you that they took something that's a flat plane and they said, no, it's a big ball? I mean, doesn't that stir up the juices, the thinking juices a little bit? Doesn't that want you to kind of investigate a little bit as to why that might be?
Yeah, wouldn't they want to know who they are? I mean, that's what got me. It's like, why wouldn't you want to know that and research that if it's true? It's fascinating. I mean, if you really looked into it, it would change your life. It would. I'm living proof of it. Gosh, well, when I found out last April, it's really changed the way everything, you know. And I started building these tables, and that was actually therapy for me, building these coffee tables and the clocks. That's what really helped me.
One of the things that I've said on a couple of shows about the flat earth, what it's done for me is I used to look into things like alien moon bases, breakaway civilizations, and with the advent of the flat earth, all of that stuff got shoved off the table. I spend no time whatsoever anymore looking at that, and you come to realize that that stuff is all a bunch of nonsense. It's all distraction to put you out there to essentially wander around aimlessly in the woods and to jump down into rabbit holes where there is no answer because it's completely fabricated. It's completely
mental clutter.
Exactly, mental clutter. So
wasted a lot of time.
Yeah, I did too. I used to put stuff up on the blog years ago. You know, I remember the one video where it showed that they had the sun and it was supposedly some kind of ship that was tethered to it. I don't know if you guys have seen that. You know,
yes.
Yeah, I bought into that hook, line, and sinker, and now I think back, I'm like, God, I'm embarrassed.
Like Planet X was one that scared me. Planet X. That scared me. I thought we're going to get hit by this dwarf star, you know, and they're talking about it on the news. And I was like, gosh, isn't anyone worrying about this? And when Flat Earth came along, I felt safe all of a sudden, you know.
Yeah, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Forget about Star Wars, you know, no more of that. Although the bar scene's still pretty cool, but that's about it.
It just takes us away from our home. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Mud balls spinning through space, the cosmos. We're nothing special. To putting us back at the center where we're supposed to be.
I know it. There's just so many proofs of the flat Earth. I mean, there's so many proofs of it. You know, the high altitude balloons that take, you know, the live cameras.
Yeah, but you have to take the time to look at it. You have to have the gumption to set aside your belief system and say, okay, let me take a look at it. That's the thing, you know. Like I said earlier, there are people that are not looking at it. There's a multitude of reasons. Some of them are paid not to look at it. They're like paid instigators. They're shills. And there are other people that just basically don't want to look at it because, you know, they've been told not to look at it. They've been indoctrinated to believe that it's ridiculous and you live on a big ball and you spin around the sun and the sun spins around the Milky Way galaxy and the whole kit and caboodle is, you know, rifling through the expanding universe at 2 million miles an hour, some number like that. It's crazy.
The constellations remain the same, though, in all these different speeds. It's ridiculous.
That's one of the ones that was a proof for me, actually, right there.
Me too.
You know, like summertime, you know, you see the same constellations, the Big Dipper, all that, and then 6 months later, you're on the other side of the sun, millions, I don't know, maybe it's billions of miles away on the other side of the sun, and it's just, you see the same thing every night. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense after you awaken to this. And there's no explanation for it. Neil deGrasse Tyson will not debate anybody on it at all. Zero. Bill Nye, I mean, gosh, his responses are ridiculous. He's saying that, you know, if you stand on the East Coast, why can't you see Europe? You know, I mean, ridiculous things like that.
He's saying that because he knows that the vast majority of the masses are so dumbed down that they're just going to take it hook, line, and sinker. They're just going to buy into it, and they're not going to question. The thing people should know about Bill Nye is he's an actor, and I think he's an electrical engineer. That's what he is by trade.
Yeah, he's not even a scientist, is he, Mike?
I don't even know how you get the title of scientist, to be perfectly honest with you. It seems like anybody can call themselves a scientist. All you have to do is just kind of dabble in something that's what you consider to be science or scientific, and you can run around saying, I'm a scientist.
Right.
Guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, I don't want to make, too much out of this because we have some other stuff to cover, but these people are all pitchmen. They're all there to keep the lid on the box. That's what their job is.
Kids that are growing up now, I mean, they've seen him all their life, so they just kind of adopted it like, oh, he's a scientist. He knows, and he's not. He's just, like you said, he's an actor.
All right, so let me just move to the next question because I want to make sure we get all the questions in, and in the time that we have left, what do you do personally to try to minimize the impacts of the Matrix to your own life? In other words, do you spend time making sure that you reduce debt, avoid consumerism, eat organic food? So just to kind of set the table here a little bit, when I talk about the Matrix, it's everything. It's vaccines, it's flu shots, it's aspartame, it's GMOs, it's chemtrails, it's the whole 9 yards. We're being attacked on all fronts. And their intent is to break down our mind-body dynamic. That's what they want to do. They want to steal your mind and they want to make your body sick. So, Stacy, what do you do? What types of things do you do in your life to make sure that you spend the least amount of time on that hamster wheel that we call the Matrix as you possibly can?
Well, I do a lot of meditation to the crystalline grid and visualizing a lot of peace and love. And I find ways to have service to others. When I have 4 kids, I do a lot of kid stuff. And why I'm still single because I monopolize my time with my kids and doing other stuff. I do a lot of essential oils and I make my own deodorants, my own body lotions, my own face washes. I mean, you can eat it. my whole thing was, I heard one person say to me, if you wouldn't eat it, why would you put it on your body where it absorbs right through your skin?
Right.
The ingredients you buy, you know, there's always that grain of thought. How pure is it? Or how, you just have to do a lot of prayer and hope that you've been guided to the right product, doing the right things for your family and for yourself, and walking. And, you know, I really have been working with my children and myself on this, is just the thought process that goes through our heads. I mean, even now, like we're talking about the challenges and everything, the self-talk and the way you view yourself. Like, we don't watch a lot of the television and stuff and a lot of the body image things because it's just so damning to their growth and development. And so those are some of the things I do, is just to try to reprogram ourselves as best you can. I mean, like, it's in the water, right? The fluoride. I mean,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. You live in the matrix, so how are you going to get away from the matrix? You know?
Yeah.
It's like the bird in the cage. How is he not living in the cage today? Well, he's still in the cage, and everything is that filter through that cage. So a lot of it is mental. I really believe that. I really believe that it's how we look at it and how we attack it, and how we allow it to shape our lives. And I just refuse to be negative. And I try to look at everything with compassion, and I try to teach my kids the same thing. So hopefully that'll work.
I can tell you that one of the things that I do is, well, by doing the research and understanding how the world really works, one of the things that all of this research has done is actually it has reduced the fear factor significantly. When I was in the matrix, before I figured some of this stuff out, there was a lot of fear, right? You can see it going on today with North Korea, nukes. We're going to have some drill in New York, the 24th through the 26th, I guess today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, how to prepare in case there's a nuclear attack. All of this, and that's all designed to keep people hunkered down, to keep them very, very fearful, and making them go to the authority figures, go to the politicians, and go to your government and say, oh, please, protect me, protect us, save us. And when you realize that this is all fabricated, this is all engineered, this is all orchestrated, all of this stuff, the whole North Korea thing is orchestrated. The recent event in Syria with the chemical weapons, that was another false flag, very similar to the one that was 2 years ago when Obama was in office. So, you know, the more things change, the more things stay the same. But I don't fear any of this stuff. And people might think I'm crazy, but I look at this whole North Korea thing and I look at it as nothing more than a gigantic hoax. And I don't lose any sleep over it whatsoever. Yet I know people that are completely out of their minds over it, wringing their hands, staying glued to their television sets. I don't know. I think they're going back to when they were in grade school. Maybe they should hide under their desk in case the alarm goes off, you know? Remember that when you were in school? But I didn't mean to digress there, but I think one of the biggest things is my life doesn't have all that fear in it anymore. It just doesn't. A lot of times I'm looking at these situations, you know, playing out, and I keep a pulse on it because I have the blog and I do the radio shows. And I almost feel like I'm on the outside looking in. I almost feel like I'm not a part of this reality. I mean, I don't know if you guys feel the same way. It's kind of like you're watching it.
Definitely.
From the outside looking in, right? And you're thinking, what the heck is going on? That place is crazy.
It's a theater.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went on a little diatribe there, but so Jason, what types of things do you do to try to minimize the impacts of the Matrix? What do you do?
Well, we are mostly vegan now. I should say plant-based because we still do have a little cheese every once in a while. But I try to detox as much as possible. Apple cider vinegar, diatomaceous earth, use coconut oil. Try to use a lot of natural, organic. Like Stacey said, you can't trust you can't trust every single source, but you do your best.
Right.
We live in Northern Virginia, so it's not like we don't have a lot of land to plant to grow our own food. So you do the best you can. I would love to get more into the meditation side of things. I've spoken to you about that before, Mike. It's just really hard to sit and focus when there's so many noises going around, and I'm like a little squirrel sometimes. But you do your best.
Come down for the session. You
Yeah.
and Joe said you'd come down.
I've been wanting to do that. Yes, definitely. That is still in the plans. But yeah, just trying to watch what goes into our bodies as much as possible. Like, again, like Stacey said, the fluoride is in the water. We got the stupid chemtrails. Who knows what the heck they're raining down on top of us? But you can't hide in your closet and just wish for it to all go away. So we just do the best we can.
Yeah.
And like you said, I do feel like I'm outside looking in, because just like the gas attack, and people are like, oh yeah, I'm glad, or it's a good thing Trump bombed, and I'm like, why are you? Assad was about to win the war against ISIS. Why would he turn around and gas his own people? It makes zero sense.
Right.
But yet people fall for it still fall for it.
Yep.
My whole thing with the whole chemical thing is, how are the first responders who are going in there, who are not wearing any sort of personal protective equipment, not coming down with the same symptoms? Because it's, it stays on the skin. And so I started doing research on the CDC. The more I got into it, I was like, I've got to turn this off, because this is just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
This is just ridiculous. Yeah.
Sarin gas, you just can't show up with a little mask and.
No, a water hose. That's not going to help you.
But
sorry.
people buy into it.
I didn't interject.
No, it's perfect. It's like we were saying before. We can announce tomorrow that the Apollo missions were a hoax, and people would be like, nah, we went to the moon.
I saw it on TV.
Yeah. Corey, how about yourself? What are you doing to make sure that you don't get sucked into the matrix?
Well, I guess I quit watching mainstream media. I quit doing that. It's been a year now since I've stopped watching the news. Actually, I haven't watched any TV. It's been 1 year since I've turned the TV on for anything. Like you said, Mike, I don't get scared anymore like that, because I know it's all, with North Korea. At one time I remember thinking, God, we're gonna, that's a country to watch out for, but I don't get scared. I mean, it's just a big hoax, like you said. It's orchestrated. I mean, look what they did after 9/11. Remember, they'd have that chart. It was
yeah. And 5 stages.
Yeah, just
5 stages of terror and fear.
Yes, and they just were terrifying the country. This is my 5th week on being a vegan, and I'm trying to do it. Yes, I still crave a hamburger. I do, but I'm doing everything I can to live the life that we were supposed to live.
Yeah.
Like, I think, Mike, you said at one time that evil works in mysterious ways. It's, evil actually runs the world,
Oh, yeah.
And it's designed to be that way. And people that are connected with their spirituality, it's good, because you can, like you said, Mike, you could look from outside looking in, and you look at it, and it's laughable, but it's not. I mean, it's just why anybody can just, fall for half the stuff that's ever. And like Stacey, I think you said one time, or just a bit ago, whoever wins gets to write the history. And you really think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is I don't think anyone knows the real truth anymore.
It's not even history, right? They get to write the story because they get to write the story. It's not history because history alludes to the fact that it's based in fact and truth. They get to write the story.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Just like with Corey talking about the Indians earlier. I mean, we all grew up watching cowboy and Indian movies, and they were dumb savages trying to scalp us. So the cowboys were the good guys.
Like, I don't know if you ever played Cowboys and Indians when you were a kid. I know I did. No one wanted to be Indian. Yeah, nobody wanted to be, and it was always like that. And I guess it's like that everywhere, it seems like. And, when you start really thinking about, I have a little bit of Indian in me, and we live really close to the reservation up here, and I'm right next door to it. So I have a lot of Indian friends. And, the history of it, it's pretty sad, actually. When you start really thinking about how the military, they slaughtered a lot of people.
They slaughter them, and then they put them on a postage stamp called a reservation.
We celebrate Christopher Columbus Day, and he came in, and he was the guy who slaughtered.
They did Mount Rushmore as a statement of conquering. So the Indians would look at Mount Rushmore and they would see the white man etched in their mountain, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that. They just think, well, it's great. They put the presidents up there. But there's another reason why Mount Rushmore was put together. This is our land now. And to remind you, we're going to put those faces up there on that mountain that you're going to have to look at now until eternity. There's a lot of stuff that goes on like that, and they play it up as not being that or that not being the intent. But once you start doing more research into some of these things, you start to realize that the story that they're telling you as to why they did something is typically not the real reason.
That's very true.
As far as breaking from the matrix, because there are people that do ask me this question. I get asked, I would say fairly often. And one of the things that I tell them, and Corey, you mentioned it, shut that television off. Shut the TV off. Stop watching that nonsense. And not just stop watching the news. Stop watching all of the predictive programming and all of the mind control that they're putting out through the television set, conditioning you to accept the police state. That's why you have all these police shows. You have all these police shows because they want you to get acclimated and conditioned to accept this into your life. Eat organic food. Rebecca got me off of meat, so I don't do meat anymore.
How long has it been, Mike?
I want to say it's been about, it's been a good 6 months or so now.
All right.
Good for you.
Congratulations. I'm about a month, so
Yeah, she got me off it.
And like my wife, she's all for that too, and my wife's a really good cook, and that's what she did. We go get recipes, and I got to tell you, I feel better. Honestly, I feel so much better.
Yes.
I've lost 50 pounds. Well, I don't know about that much, but I've lost some weight, and I just feel I have more energy. I just feel really good and getting off the meat. You think about meat that sits in your gut for years before it can,
Well, and the other thing is, they're killing sentient beings. They're killing animals, living animals, so you can eat them, And what did it for me, other than the fact that, Rebecca just was cooking, without the meat, is I saw a documentary. I actually forced myself to watch it. It was the most unbearable thing. It was how the animals are killed and the farms that they're on. And these animals are imprisoned and they're in cages and they're raised this way. And, I didn't want to watch it because I didn't want to watch it because I knew what I was going to see. And it was almost like, well, I don't want to see this. And I forced myself to watch it.
It's awful.
And then it was after I watched that, I said, you know what? We're done.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be eating meat. There is none whatsoever.
Think about how horrible the meat is. I mean, with all the bad food that they feed them and the antibiotics they pump into them to keep the parasites out, and then the fear and the adrenaline, right? They know they're getting ready to be killed. Cows will kill their calves because they know what's coming. They'll bang their head against the wall and kill them. So just think all that stuff is going into the meat and we're eating it. It can't be good.
It's not good. It's unbelievable. And Rebecca and I had a discussion the other day, and I said to her, the hardest part of not eating meat was making the decision not to eat meat because, our whole lives we were raised with hamburgers, hot dogs, steaks, and so on, right?
Every meal.
But once you make the decision, every meal, and once you make the decision to do it, you don't miss it.
Right.
I don't miss it. Every once in a while I might think, well, I can't even say any more about even a hamburger. Maybe in the beginning, but now I don't think about it anymore.
There's good veggie burgers out there.
It's just not part of my diet.
Days.
It's not in there anymore. There's lots of stuff you can eat, But the other thing too is for folks, reduce the debt. Because debt is the ace up their sleeve. They want you in debt. They want you up to your eyeballs in debt. That's why they keep telling you buy. Because somebody who is in debt, somebody who has a lot of debt cannot critically think because you're in that fight or flight mentality. You're trying to survive. You're in survival mode. You're not thriving, you're surviving.
That's right.
And so that's a big piece of it. That's something that I taught my daughter very early on in her life, to avoid the debt. And she's done a very good job, and she'll come to me every once in a while and say, Dad, that was some pretty good advice when I was growing up,
Don't they, like with the stores, don't they they like dye it red or do something to the meat so it looks good or something like that?
No, yeah.
I think there's meat glue now. They'll glue pieces of meat together to make the steaks look more appetizing.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so all of this stuff that you can do, I mean, to be healthier, and I used to eat all the junk foods, and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was dragging. My ass was dragging. And once I stopped eating all that stuff and I started eating healthy, all of my energy came back.
Yep.
And I was sleeping better at night. I just felt better, you know. So I know, folks, for those that haven't made the leap yet, it might sound like we're just pumping our own tires up here. But I've got to tell you, I think all of us can vouch for the fact that by changing our diet, things got a lot better.
Definitely.
All right. So let me get to this question here. If you have somebody in your life, a partner, a spouse, somebody who you're very, very close to, are they on board? Like, well, I'll start with you, Jason. Is your wife on board with the stuff that you're on board with? And if she's not, how do you work through discussions and dialogue that could get a little herky-jerky?
My wife is wonderful. I'd like to start with that. She does entertain some of my research. Some of it's so, you know, it's big and it's scary. So there's a limit to what she wants to hear. The flat earth thing still throws her because I will mention things every once in a while, just like, man, look at all that water. It sure looks flat. I can see a long way. There's no curve. She's just like, I don't want to hear that right now. So, you know, there's some issues she'll listen to and others she's not ready to hear yet. But
it sounds like you have a solid relationship where, you know, if you want to go off on these little tangents or what they view as tangents, she's okay with it.
She's not going to kick me out of the house.
All right.
But yeah.
Stacy, how about you?
Oh, I don't have anybody, so I pass.
So it's easy.
Easy, yeah. I have an orange cat. I call him my orange husband, and he listens to me.
You said your kids, though, right, Stacy? You talk to your kids about some of these things?
Yeah, your kids.
Yeah, I do talk to the kids. Yep, I do. Yeah, and
I started on my 10-year-old with the flat earth stuff. So
start younger.
Dropping it.
Start younger because I started with my crystals actually because I've always been about crystals and color therapy, and that's how I started, you know, breaking away and everything. And my son was 4 at the time, and so now he's 11, but he is huge into crystals. So I'd say start him on whatever you want to start him on. And my whole thing is to keep, I tell them all the time, keep an open mind about everything. Mm-hmm. Keep an open mind. Because everything is a story. Everything. I was raised Catholic, and so that's what I'm saying. I was very spiritual. I was rocked to my core when I found out a lot of this stuff about the Catholic Church. I mean, my mother's side is Catholic. I'm Italian, and my mother's side is Catholic. My dad is Catholic. So yeah, when for me to hear the rest of the story, so to speak, as Paul Harvey would say, it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah. Same here. I was raised Roman Catholic, Italian family. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, Mike, before when you mentioned about family reunions, my 10-year-old was talking to one of my aunts, and she said, well, Jason doesn't believe a lot of the things I'm being taught right now. And she said, well, like what? And obviously there's a million things to say. I just said, I don't believe we ever went to the moon. And she said, my grandmother said the same thing. And I thought it was going to be a big thing. My wife tells me to not say things at the family get-togethers to just, you know, stay away from problems. And that one actually went over well. So I was kind of happy with that.
Yeah. I think the thing with the moon is that there's so much information out there now. There is so much good work done video-wise, blogs and so on that have just completely taken apart their pictures, their footage, everything. It actually becomes a lot easier to have that conversation these days. I think a lot more people are open to it. Yeah, like I mentioned before, you know, you go to family outings and family get-togethers, you really do have to like measure your audience, otherwise it's going to be a ballroom brawl.
It's going to be a screaming match.
Yeah. So, Corey, how about you?
Well, my wife, She's open-minded. She is. She will, she'll look at anything, and then she'll decide for herself. But when I told her about flat Earth, it was hard for her to, she's not quite on board yet, but she looks at it. She looks at my coffee tables. One thing that she does realize is that since I've been into this so much, the garage is just full of tables and everything that I'm building, and I have a globe in here also. We go over the globe and we go over these tables, and she's starting to learn this. Like Capricorn, Equator, and Cancer, most people don't even know where that's at on a globe. But when you look at it on a coffee, or like these tables that I'm building, these models, it's so easy to see how the system works. So she's catching on to it. My sister, she looks into it, and I'm glad that she looks into it. I don't bring it up to a lot of my family very much anymore. I kind of keep it to myself. Like, if they really want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But if it's just, 10 against 1, I don't even want no part of it,
Yeah, it's not productive, right? You're not gaining anything from it. So to talk about that stuff, like we said, it's just going to wind up making things terse and stressful.
Fight.
And so,
yeah.
And fight. You don't want to fight with your family. We have about 10 minutes, and so to head out here to wrap the show up, and Stacy, we'll start with you. What advice do you have for those that have just ventured into awakening to the Matrix? People who are just finding things out, getting curious, maybe they're a little scared to jump into certain things or to talk about certain things. What advice do you have for those folks?
I would say to try not to look at it all at once and to pick something that interests them and to go with that and to learn about that and get used to that and see how that sits with you. Because as you go along, this might take me on a tangent, but bear with me. I was listening to Deepak, one of these gurus, if you will, and I was listening to him and I was thinking, man, he knows what he's talking about. I really need to listen to him, all this stuff. And then as I started researching him more and more, I started realizing, well, he's another frontman. He's another paid person, and so then I found that out. So then I would get back to well, man, what do you believe? And so then you go through that whole little loop, right, of denial. I'm going to believe it. Then, I found something. Oh, but that's not what I thought it was. Now I'm mad again. And so I did that for a while. And so my advice is just to go through, allow yourself to have those emotions, to go through that cycle, because it's going to be shocking. There's going to be things that's going to really rock your story to your core. And it's okay for you to have those emotions, and you're going to have to cycle through those emotions and to do it slowly. And don't, a lot of it is, I don't judge myself anymore. And I try like hell not to judge others, because everybody's walking a different story, and they're all responding to the story the best way that they know how. And unfortunately, life does not, and the society that we have does not teach us how to navigate. And so I would just say, just take it slow and allow yourself to have those emotions.
Okay, excellent. Corey, how about you?
I guess go to the people that actually do the research, because you got to remember there's always someone checking into something. Never go to the mainstream media. You're not going to get it there. If you go to the independent researchers, I guess.
It takes time to figure out who are the good guys and good gals there too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I always try to tell them, don't listen to me. Look it out for yourself, because it's out there. The truth is out there. It's some people aren't ready for it, though. I think a lot of people are just happy with their day-to-day life, and they punch in, they punch out, and some people are just comfortable like that. I think certain people who wake up, I don't know what it is, but there are some people, when they finally wake up and get out of the Matrix, it's truly amazing. We weren't supposed to live like this, I believe. We were, in the beginning, God had another plan for us.
This is not the life that we're supposed to be living. We're living a life that has been manufactured. They have sold it to us, and virtually everybody has bought it. All right, let's get Jason to hop in here to wrap up the show. So, Jason, what advice do you have?
Well, I would not follow any guru that's looking for money, that's for sure. That's why I've liked following your blog so much. You're not ever trying to charge anybody. You just put information out for their own, take this for what it's worth, have a look at it. It's for me, it's all about what resonates. If I take it in and it seems legit, then I'll hold on to it. If it's not, I'll file it for later, or if it's just complete BS, then it's out. I feel like we've got a moral compass for these things, just like flat Earth. Once you get past the first initial silly feeling of it, like, oh, but we've seen so many pictures of Earth and we've seen this and that, and what about astronauts and all this? It's very freeing when you go by your gut and you don't listen to all these complex algorithms of how the Earth is a curve, blah, blah, blah. I'm going by my gut now, and I feel much better about that.
Yeah, you go by your own perceptions, right? And your own reasoning and your logic and your own intellect. That's the thing. Your mind was stolen by these people. And you were told there's no reason to think, there's no reason to logic through anything. You shouldn't be reasoning through anything. Just listen to us. We'll tell you how to think, what to do, how to act, what to believe. It is very liberating when you start to look at things and you start to critical think and free think through whatever. It could be flat Earth, it could be geoengineering, it could be vaccines, it could be anything. And it's very, very liberating when you start using your God-given gift of your mind and your brain to do this stuff. So, well, I want to say to everybody that this has been a very, very fun show to do. I hope you guys had a good time. We covered a lot of ground, and it was very conversive, and that's what I was hoping for, and I think we got that with this show. So I want to thank you all for making the time, for coming on, and I'm going to do more of these shows. I'm going to try to do them maybe once a month or once every 4 to 6 weeks, because I think it's very important that the audience get to know others out there that are not personalities, if you will, in the truth movement or the alternative research community. I think they need to know that they're in very good company, that there are many like-minded people out there thinking the same way they are. And I think it's very key to making change in the world.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mike. I really appreciate you asking, and this has been a lot of fun. And nice to meet you, Corey and Stacy.
Yeah, you too, Jason and Stacy. Mike, thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate that. And your table should be there in a couple of days. Let me know when you get it.
I will. It's supposed to be here on Wednesday.
Yes, thank you very much as well for having me. I appreciate it, and I feel honored. Also, if you guys want to message me anything about some flat Earth theories, I have so many questions, and I don't know where to look. So if you point me in the right direction, that'd be
absolutely
great. I've opened the box, and now I don't know where all to look. So I appreciate some pointers in our direction.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll have the show out as soon as I possibly can. And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.